Welcome back to Ride On. I'm James Gross, and I'm joined by Jimmy Stanley, the founder and CEO of Solé Bicycles out of Venice Beach. Jimmy, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, James. Thank you for having me. Excited to chat with you today.
Great. And I appreciate you being Jimmy, and I could be James, so we're not both Jameses on the pod, and maybe that would cause confusion. So that works, but it's also James Stanley as well. So Jimmy, let's take it back. You've been doing some amazing work in the micromobility space for really a very long time. So I think the audience would love to hear the backstory of Solé Bicycles and how it came to be all the way back in 2009. And let's go through the journey. So let's start in 2009 then. What were you thinking when you wanted to start your company?
Totally. Yeah. So back then I was in college, and really the idea was, it was just a class project for one of our business plan classes. So at the time we saw these New York Fixie riders, in 2009, 2010 era, right? And these guys were building these bikes piece by piece. And it was like, $1,000 to $2,000 for one of these bikes. As broke college students, we were like, we really wanted one of these bikes, but we couldn't afford it. So the original concept was, how do we make an all-in-one bike for a fraction of the cost, right? Sell something for $200-$300. So we did this as a business plan for one of our classes, and our professor was like, hey, this is a really good idea. You guys should go do this business plan competition that I've heard of. And at the time it was being done by a little company called Alibaba. And so we go to this business plan competition, we win the competition and win a $25,000 grant. And that we take that $25,000 and, that Alibaba flies us over to Asia to work on our first, help us find a source, develop our first product. And then we take the balance of the cash and do our first order of bikes. I think it was a 20-foot container with, 150 bikes, give or take. We had them shipped actually to our frat house. And then we were just like hustling right out of the house, the kids on campus. And sold that first round of bikes, took the profits, bought a second round, got a 3PL, and we're off to the races.
Amazing. Okay, so started in college, not quite in the garage, it sounds like, maybe in the frat house. And what was it like to work with Alibaba in 2009 as a college student? Like, were you working with directly with people in China, or was this people that worked in the U.S. offices? 2009, I'm not even sure if they had U.S. offices at that time. So yeah, curious what that was like.
Yeah, no, I think like again, this is so far back, right? For them, this was a marketing piece for them to try to break into the U.S. market and try to get some awareness around them as a sourcing business, right? And so, yeah, we were dealing directly with people in China, and they, connected us with a source, that's someone that was making bikes, not specifically Fixie single speed style, but we were able to work with them, create our first product, and yeah, it was like really just got thrown in. It was not it, and it all happened so fast, right? Like, we went from working with them, then Forbes caught wind of it, and we won this award that was like coolest college startup of that year. And so from like an idea to like being featured on Forbes all happened within like less than 12 months, right? And it really kicked things off for us.
And were you able to get the price point out on the Fixie single speed, like the original intent of the business plan? Was that fulfilled?
Yeah, I think our first bike we were selling for around $199, right? I think it was landed, give or take, around $100.
$199.
Yeah, and that was again,
Sorry, Jimmy, what school was this that you're at?
I was at Chapman University, and my business partners are at USC, University of Southern California.
Okay, so you're at Chapman and USC. And how did the college kids on the West Coast take to the Fixie single speed? I agree with you. I think that feels like more of a New York City thing at that time. Were the California kids into it as well, or was that kind of, did you have to teach them that story, or was there already enough single speed influence in California?
Yeah, I think what really attracted people to it were like the really bright colors, and like from the early days, we liked to ride bikes, but we didn't have like a background in like professionally riding or like competitive riding or anything like that. And actually, my partners and we all had backgrounds in music, art, fashion. And so when we were designing the products, you can go on our site, you can see our product now. the colors and the simplicity of the design was such an emphasis from the early days. And so those really loud, bright, fun colors really helped sell the product. People were really attracted to the design, and not necessarily just because it was a single speed or fixie style bike, right? Just because of the design and look of it. So really, I think that's what helped us break into this market and get some traction.
Gotcha. And, I mean, again, the colors, yeah, we go on your website, you definitely see that the artistry side of you all comes up quite a bit. But, we just put out the interview I did with Levi Conlow from Electric Bikes. We now sells more electric bikes in America than anyone else. And, I think what Levi is so religious about is the cost and getting the cost down and passing that cost, the cost savings onto the consumer. Sounds like that is a big part of your story, at least to start, was that I assume that $199 price point, that's got to be the cheapest game in town or close to the cheapest game in town for these kids.
Yeah. I mean, when we were selling at that price, that was totally the cheapest price. And that's still a big part of our business model, being a direct to consumer brand, offering a really high quality product at a competitive price is, really been the name of the game for us since the beginning. We've really relied on that as, selling direct through our website, selling direct through our retail stores. The direct business has been really, really crucial for us. And again, by offering that more competitive price, we may not necessarily have as much wholesale margin to sell into bike shops or whatnot. So that was by creating our own distribution versus going the more traditional route of selling into bike shops was another way that allowed us to sort of differentiate and, separate ourselves from the competitors.
Yeah. And so, I mean, at this timing, 2010 or so, you're really like a pioneer on the DTC side, in doing your business that way. So let's continue to go through the evolution. So you're able to offload your first couple containers. You're able to sell them right out of your dormitory. Where does it go from there? I assume at some point you graduate college, or maybe you don't graduate college, with the business. But take us through, 2010 and 11 and 12 and 13.
Yeah. So business starts growing. And like I said, our first batch of bikes, we were selling through the college campus. And then we set up a website, and we get this article within that year from Forbes calling us one of the coolest college startups of, I think it was 2010. And a funny story around that, this article goes live, and we had a sort of makeshift website at the time. But one of the things we didn't have was inventory control, very basic thing. It was just you could sell unlimited amounts of each of the SKUs, right? So this article goes live, and we do $250,000 of sales in a few weeks, but we're selling bikes that we don't have. So yeah, so then we had and our payment processing was through PayPal. And so we ended up refunding, it was some $200,000, and PayPal called us just what the hell are you guys doing? We've never seen someone refund this much money. So then that sort of helped us be okay, we got to have a scalable way of doing this. And we were actually one of the first, I think it was first 1,000 companies on Shopify. And so set up our Shopify store. Yeah. Shopify early days. We played that one right? Because now they're really the marquee sort of go-to e-commerce platform. But we were on one of the first 1,000 stores on Shopify, built the website, built all the correct controls to really make this a direct-to-consumer business. And again, I think that was just a byproduct of the time we were in, right? Social media was really growing, and the ability to build businesses on social media was an idea that was really starting to take wind. And then the ability to market via Facebook, Instagram, and Google really was something that was starting to happen. And so we were again, we came into this business, it was just a timing thing. These things were all happening. We were able to leverage them and get success. And that's kind of how we further developed the business. And so, yeah, we graduated school, and we all moved to Venice Beach, and all being from Southern California, because to us, Venice Beach was the cultural hub of California, where you have art, music, fashion, you have entrepreneurs, you have crazy people, you have all this mix of culture that we thought was super important, a great landing spot for the brand to be based out of, right? And again, for us, we all had backgrounds in art, music, and fashion, and not necessarily bikes. And so that was really inspired us when we designed the product, right? It was where do we want the brand to be based, and how do we want to design the brand? And for us, it was like a bicycle for many people is something that's really just gets them from point A to point B. But for us, our approach was like, hey, it could be more than that. It could be something that inspires you, that's a extension of you, right? You can relate to it. And you'll see on our site with the different fix tapes that we do, which is like a monthly mixtape that we partner with different DJs from around the world of what that DJ wants to listen to if they were going to do an hour-long bike ride, right? Like we do our fix tape series, our Cruising USA series, our collaborations with brands from all over the world. So really the focus was like be someone that's culturally relevant and then leverage that to really develop a brand around the product that's different than other bike brands.
Okay, so you're doing that, and so you got like in terms of the tool. So you graduated from school. In terms of the tool stack, you're early to Shopify, which again, nice platform bet there, winning bet. Sounds like it's funny because Forbes, you think like this very traditional publisher back in the day that probably could drive a lot of traffic, doesn't seem to drive as much anymore, but drive a lot of traffic for you to get those some of those big early sales. And how important? So and then you get into Venice. You're at the cultural hub of California, which is in many ways the cultural hub for a lot of mobility movements in general through the decades. Curious on like how important was social to you at the time? So 2011, 12, 13, 14, is Facebook the big channel? I would assume. If so, how big versus the more traditional coverage like the Forbes coverage?
Yeah, I think in those early days, we were really focused on building our social presence. Instagram, I think, was the most important or biggest driver for us. So organically, we were growing our Instagram.
When did that start? Sorry for you.
I would say, I mean,
what was like the first big year for you for sales with Instagram?
I can't think of a year that per se like it jumped. It was a natural growth from the early days because again, in like 2009, 2010, that's when Instagram started to become relevant, right? Like Facebook, it was sort of starting to peak out, and then Instagram comes in and gets bought by Facebook. And that was really like the cool thing from like the early 2010s. And so we were just building our brand organically on Instagram. And then, shortly thereafter, I want to say like 2013, 14, 15 is when like they introduced their paid platform, right? And back then, in the early days of the Facebook, Instagram paid platform, it was like the Wild West, right? You put $1 in, you get $10 back. And it was just, people didn't understand retargeting. People, you're putting ads out there, and people are calling me like, I'm seeing your ads in this place, or I see you on NBC.com, which was like kind of display network type stuff. And like, it was just so new, and it was just working so well, So we would just follow the money, right? Like put money in, get money back, and just scale. And so, yeah, again, that was just like right time, right place. It doesn't work like that anymore, right? It is so much more challenging to grow a brand and scale with paid marketing. It's just extremely, extremely, extremely competitive these days. But back then, again, it was just the Wild West, and there was just not many people doing it. And so if you had a good product, you could really scale with that.
Yeah, I don't want to fast forward too much, but one question I have sort of on the present is, do you see any networks or platforms that have some of that, lack of a better term, arbitrage on marketing that you had in Instagram in the 2013 through 16 timeframe? Like, is TikTok like that for you today, or is there anything that's WhatsApp? I don't know, anything that's from a marketing channel perspective as return heavy. I've heard the story quite a few times about Instagram and Facebook, but curious if there's anything out there today that reflects what you got back then.
This day and age, I think like we don't see it on TikTok. I mean, we haven't had a ton of success on TikTok. And nothing like what it used to be. I mean, really this, and if I were going to make a recommendation to anyone else that's running a e-mobility or bicycle type brand, it's like you can leverage Facebook, Instagram, TikTok to get those initial impressions, but you're going to see your best return by having a super strong middle of funnel strategy, right? With email, with text message. I mean, I got into text message like 2 years ago because one of our agencies was pitching us, and I was like, there's no way someone's going to buy a bike through a text. I was like, that's crazy. But they like convinced me to give it a shot. They gave us a really good deal on trying it. Now, like last click attribution, text message is like 20% of our sales online, And so really you got to think about like a product like a bicycle or a scooter, one of these higher intent type purchases, and like something that's multiple thousands of dollars, the consumer is going to take a lot of time thinking about the purchase, doing their research, like making sure they're picking the right product. And so as a brand, you need to have a really strong middle of funnel, email, text message, like continue to hit them and stay top of mind so that when they are ready to purchase, you're top of mind and you've stayed on top of them throughout that process. There's not a lot of paid marketing that just like converts sales out at the gate like they used to. There's just not.
So let's also talk about so clearly you got the Fixie single speed, you had the $199 price point to start. When do you start to go up market? When do you start to sell more types of vehicles than just the single speed, and actually start to charge more money too? Just curious what that evolution looked like, and what maybe your advisors were telling you or people around you were like, hey, Jimmy, you got to do this too. Like, just curious how you moved out of just the single speed market as you had more success.
Yeah, I think, from the single speed, we slowly just developed more products that we were seeing in our local market that we thought made sense, right? We went into like a, Dutch style and like city cruiser style bike that was, for the person that didn't want to have such an aggressive ride, something more casual, but still light and easy to use, like the single speed. We came out with just a traditional beach cruiser as well, because that's just a very massive market for us here in the beach. And then also when we opened our USC store, that was like the main bike that people rode around at USC. Went into multiple speeds of the city bike and the Dutch. Again, this is a natural sort of evolution of saying, hey, what does the market want in our area? And, then we just slowly kind of built based on what our consumers were telling us. And then this year, granted, it's been about 13 years, we just, finally just came out with our first electric bike. And the thing was, we've been thinking about electric for probably 5-6 years. I think we were just, design is such an important part of our aesthetic and the brand. And we were just having so many challenges trying to find or design or find a partner that could help us make a bike that kept that really sleek, minimalist design aesthetic to an electric bike. The early days of electric bikes had these like big battery packs coming off the back, or the battery pack, attached to the frame. And it just, we couldn't make it work where we felt comfortable with the design aesthetic. So we were extremely patient in the development and coming to market with an electric bike. But now, this first one we brought out, I think really aligns with that kind of design, simplistic aesthetic. And then we're also working on 4 other electric bikes that all are within line of our previous products, but also from a look and design aesthetic are aligned with the brand as well.
Okay, so yeah, I mean this is the big moment for us. Like you've released the E24. We had it at Micromobility America a couple of weeks ago. It's really fun to ride. Really, I mean, to get in many ways speaks to a lot of things that you're saying. I guess one question there is like why did it take so long? You've been in the business forever. You've had the Chinese supply chains forever. You've had the marketing DTC channels for so long. Was there a lot of pressure to go electric? Were people kind of getting on you about this, given it clearly is a craze? The e-bike sales are enormous versus more acoustic style and potentially better margins. In many ways, I think it seems you're very contrarian for taking this long. What were the main reasons why you waited this long to launch the first vehicle? I mean, it sounds like, of course, you wanted to get it right, but I'm a little surprised you couldn't have got it right earlier, given the design background, given the connections to the supply chain. What were some of the other things potentially holding you back?
Yeah, I think, to be completely honest, probably the biggest factors weren't necessarily because we didn't want to get it live. I would say from like 2019 until today, the bike economy and the economy in general was so challenging that it was just, our bandwidth internally was so spread thin with dealing with 2019 to 2020, the explosion in demand, inability to get supply, right? 2020, 2021, finally getting supply, but then dealing with the crazy supply chain issues where containers went from $1,000 to $20,000 within a multi-month period. And then 2021, 2022, 2023, the massive reduction in demand or correction in demand. Since you had that spike in 2020, 2021, now there's a dampering and a correction happening. So it wasn't that I would say it could have been done sooner, but these have been like unprecedented, like crazy, super challenging years since basically like 2019. Because I would say from like 2020 to 2019, we saw a consistent sort of demand. We saw consistent growth. Like the business was what I would call stable. And then since 2019, it has been a roller coaster.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how history looks at it. But there's potentially a very good analysis that says it was just best to miss that entire period and actually launch in 2023 because it does seem like while of course there was opportunity, the toll it's taken on a lot of companies to go through that roller coaster that you just explained can have some lasting effects on companies. That of course we've reported on that a little bit, but I still think that's kind of coming out in the wash exactly how much damage was done because of that roller coaster. Would you say now 2023 and on with the E24, which is, it sounds like you got other models coming, is the future of Solé electric? We still have one foot in what we call acoustic, or any bike I'm going to buy from Solé in 2024 and beyond is going to come with an electric drivetrain.
Yeah, I would say we are investing heavily in electric, and we are going to follow down that path and see where it takes us. I don't think that we'll ever completely pull away from acoustic bikes. That's the footing and the core of the brand, and we still have really strong demand, not only on our consumer business, direct to consumer business, but also our wholesale and private label and hotel business for the acoustic style bike. So I don't think that we'd ever fully pull out of that. But, naturally, if that channel grows to a point where that becomes a majority of our business, like we just have to follow where demand and where the money takes us. But, again, we were built on an acoustic style bike, and, that I think is always going to be at the core of the business. And even like the single speed Fixie style bike that we started the business with is still our number one seller on the direct to consumer side. So I think that's always going to be at the heart of
Oh, that's
the brand.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. In terms of so again, we didn't really cover it yet, but like a lot of what's so interesting about your business, I think how you grew it, and I think it speaks to a lot of the zeal of an entrepreneur that you are. You sell, of course, the single speed. You sell all of these acoustic bikes to DTC, but you also have a very solid business in selling fleet sales to hotels. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, but you also sell to the universities, like you have a store at the University of Southern California, which is maybe you're the only person I know with a bike store at USC, which is pretty interesting. And then, you go on your website, you also do, you have Solé Sports and some of the ways that you think about co-branded offerings there. How do you do so many different things? Just curious there. And what's your motto on that? Where you have a lot of people just say, hey, I'm going to be one channel. I'm going to do one thing really well. It seems like you're really spread out, and you're selling to a lot of different types of customers. Like I assume the university and the hotel is really like a B2B relationship that you got there, B2B type sales motion versus the DTC with how you sell to consumers, the Fixies, and even your new electric bikes. Just curious how you do all that and how you think about that. And as an entrepreneur, is that something you're going to continue to do? Will you continue to go into new markets, or would you rather consolidate more? Just curious on your strategy there.
Sure. Yeah. I think in the early days, we started selling direct to consumer. That was like where the business kicked off. And we just, as hustlers, or just as the nature of who we were, we sort of followed the money as wherever it would come. And, the B2B kind of wholesale private label stuff was just a derivative of, we had hotels reach out to us and say, hey, we love this style and the look of your product. Can you make us custom branded bikes for our hotels, right? After getting a few of those deals, it was like, hey, okay, let's figure out how we can scale that or create a more formal offering for these hotels, right? And that's built into over 400 hotels across the U.S. have our product. And then in Southern California alone, we do a hotel sales and service business. We're actually servicing the product for those hotels in the Southern California area, or a subset of them. And then similar, we had, again, because our product's so simplistic and clean looking, we had vitamin cocoa or vitamin water. One of the coconut water brands, one of the water beverage brands back in 2010 reached out to us and wanted a co-branded bicycle, gave us 100 bike order. And we're just okay, it's real business, right? How can we scale that? So how do we create a formal offering and process to, sell to these brands, whether it's just a co-branded partnership that's a marketing partnership, or actually creating, a large scale amount of product for these brands. And so really it was just following the money as it came. But then also just what I found is if you go you have to be diversified in your distribution, right? Because if you just go one channel, then you're sort of locked. You're at risk to that channel if that channel goes down and you don't have a diversified. And that could be like it goes down from a seasonality standpoint, or it goes down from a sort of a larger economy, shakeup standpoint. If all your eggs are in one basket, you're leaving yourself extremely exposed. And so we just found in the early days having a diversified distribution has really saved us many, many times. And then they also sort of support themselves, right? Like, the online marketing that we do for direct business stirs up more of these partnership and corporate type businesses. Our retail stores in Venice and USC, they do business for us, as like sales in the bike shop, service in the bike shop. But then the guys in the shop, guys and gals in the shop, they also do customer service for our direct consumer business. We can do reworks for our custom business out of there. So actually the retail stores become these massive value driving hubs for us that as a standalone business probably doesn't make sense. But when you layer in all these other pieces of value driving things that support the other distribution channels, and it becomes much more valuable to us, right? So it was a product of, being diversified. We're dealing with a seasonal business naturally, right? The bicycle sales kind of peak March through September, then drop off. So having other ways of driving revenue in those down months, and then just, really following the money as it came in.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And on the B2B sales, the hotels and other things, like how do you do those sales? Do you have a sales team, or are you doing them all yourself, or what's that more field sales approach look like? Clearly you get the halo, it sounds like, from the direct DTC business and the advertising. Maybe it's some of that inbound, but still probably I assume it's a little bit of a hand-to-hand type sales motion. I'm sure a lot of people that are listening are curious how you get those sales done.
Yeah. I mean, we do a lot of marketing through our direct-to-consumer space that gets us a lot of inbound leads. We do have a sort of team in-house that's focusing on growing that, right? And, whether it's just getting on the phone and calling these hotels or just driving more leads for us, and then just having a, formal process internally of how to, sell these deals once we get in front of the right person, and how to create the best offering for them and make the sale as easy as possible, make the most sense. But, yeah. I would say our direct marketing is the biggest driver of these leads, our direct marketing, which when I say direct marketing.
Okay, so that's just the halo of the direct marketing.
Yep, correct.
And then in terms of again, you have a good touch point of the university store, and I assume you talk to a lot of university students because of that, and you get a lot of feedback from university students. Clearly, they're most likely on more of the cutting edge of a lot of trends of demand, because they're just like a lot of kids are younger, and they're absorbing culture, and they're helping actually influence culture. Any trends you see there at the university level that you think maybe will play out or demand, or that's any different than your Venice store, or just a more broader market that you're reaching? Anything the kids want that, again, the rest of the world just doesn't know about yet?
And I promise I'm not saying this because I'm on a micromobility podcast, but what we've actually seen over the last 5 years is acoustic bike sales are declining, and then like electric scooters and electric bikes are growing. I don't know if that's just specific to that campus, but I mean, we've seen that just a total change in the 5 years of running that shop. Like it's the demand is drastically falling for acoustic bikes there. And then we've had to replace it with like bird style electric scooters, more price point electric style bikes, because again, the consumer at a college campus is very price sensitive, just like we were when we started our business, right? And so price point electric products have really are growing, and the acoustic products are declining.
Interesting. And on the scooter side, that's good insight. I wasn't even thinking about with your store. How important are scooters for you at your university store, and how important do you think they will be in the future vis-a-vis the bikes?
It's just a supplementary product. I would say like it makes up less than 10% of the we'll call it like the product sales of like the a bike or the e-bike or scooter. It's probably less than 10%, but it's growing. And then it's also a product that we sell in our B2B business. So we found demand in that. I think it just aligns with the whole movement of the e-mobility. There's just a lot of attraction around that. And it's just another piece of that puzzle, piece of that offering that we're providing.
That makes sense. And then maybe final question. I think you've got a really good sense of like online marketing tactics, of course. So we talked a little bit about sort of the highest part of the funnel, and Facebook ads and Instagram ads and others. We talked a little bit about more mid funnel activation. You mentioned text messaging and how much that's taken off for you. Are there other things out there, newsletter or lower funnel activities that are referral programs, maybe out of the university system or anything that like are super critical to your business that are like, again, maybe someone just wouldn't think about, or it's not common sense?
Sure. Yeah, I think what's been an interesting tactic, especially for the electric bike, is our referral program, our affiliate program. So, prior to the electric bike launching, we had maybe like 300-400 affiliates. And that's, anyone can sign up on our website and become an affiliate. The commission that these affiliates make on like a $400 bike is, like maybe $40 a sale. But we've actually, when we launched electric bike, our Instagram, we got, I want to say, over 200 influencers reaching out, trying to get a, free electric bike for us, which obviously we can't be giving these away. The price is way too high. But we developed an affiliate program where they actually, put in a deposit, and like if they make a certain amount of sales, they can keep the bike, and draw, and then also the commission they can make on a, say give or take $200,000 or $2,000, sale is much more significant than like a $400. So that's been an interesting strategy that is, again, we've only been doing it for about a month, but I think is going to take wind and be a good piece of that acquisition strategy for us on the electric bike side. If for the program, we use Refersion. So you just Google Refersion to see the sort of tech stack backend that plugs into Shopify. But yeah, that's been a winner for us so far.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. And yeah, I mean the giveaways on the electric bikes, I assume you need to be choosy with that. And I've heard of Refersion. I haven't used it or anything. That's a good insight there. All right, so to end, clearly you have the E24 out now. People can go to Solé Bicycles and buy one today. You mentioned, you kind of teased out there some other models, but maybe let's fast forward 5 years on your business. Like, what do you think are your best selling bikes? How much of it is DTC versus other channels, like the hotel channels? Like what do you think you're most known for in 5 years from now?
I think that all of the marketing and branding and knowledge that we've built around building our direct to consumer brand with the acoustic bikes, I think we can amplify that and build, an electric bike business, a really strong electric bike business with all that knowledge. And so I think 5 years from now, as we diversify our electric bike offering, I think that is going to be the majority of our business, the direct to consumer sales. Hopefully we can parlay that into some, B2B sales into bike shops and other like wholesale partners. But again, I think the biggest driver is going to be our direct to consumer, just because that's where we have the most experience. To tease some of the products, I'd say the one I'm most excited about, again, the single speed Fixie style bike on our site, the one that's sort of our core product, we're going to come out with an electric version of that looks exactly like that, but it's electric, right? Integrated battery. It's also going to have some really cool tech that no other e-bike on the market has. That's why it's taken us a bit longer to get it completed, but it's going to have some cool tech around maintenance and after service. Because again, our advisors have told us, and our core focus when designing electric has been after service needs to be your number one thought, because you can sell the product, but you're signing up for like a 10-year relationship with that customer, right? And so you need to make sure that the product is extremely dialed, that you also have all the pieces in place to service that and cost effectively service it, right? And if you can't cost effectively service it when there's issues, you're going to lose all your profit eventually, right? So whether it's replacing batteries or replacing
we know that story well.
Yeah. So
yeah, totally. No, I know it's that's definitely a big thing. Well, I mean, I think we're pumped to see more of your products, Jimmy. I think there's a lot of inspiration. I think a lot of people can take from you, and there's just also no denying what 14 years of building a business, the benefits you can hopefully draw from that, as like you're still, you still build a business in a modern era, right? You're the first 1,000 companies on a tech stack like Shopify. But yet, the compounding nature of what you see in the market and, build some Teflon on your business, I think is really interesting. It allows you to make these big bets and, while also being like, a nimble company. I think we've seen a lot of the really more traditional acoustic businesses struggle in a transition, partly because they're much bigger, they're run by bankers, the founders are gone, like a lot of the soul is gone out of those businesses. And I think you said it that, like I talked to Swifty Scooters who won our startup awards last week out of the UK, there's something to be said about founders in the business. The business is 10 or 12 years old. And you're still, sharp as a tack, and you've got tooling, and you've got the brand, and you've got those years of just the scars, which are really valuable scars to have. So it's fun to watch businesses like yours, because I think you have a really awesome chance to do amazing things for existing customers, and then just of course reaching so many more people, because we know there's demand for many more vehicles to be bought than what are currently bought today. But it's about culture, it's about marketing, it's about the right fit for the right person, and I think you guys really have carved out a really nice form factor in place for that. And now, we just gotta let the rest of the world know about it.
Totally. I appreciate all the kind comments, James. That means a lot. And yeah, we're excited to continue to develop the business and put good products out there and learn more about the space, work with great people like you. You guys ran a great event that we were fortunate enough to go to 2 weeks ago. And, we're excited to continue to work with you guys in the future and go to all other US events, maybe some of your international ones. And it's an exciting time for us and an exciting time for the micromobility space. So thank you for, giving us the microphone today to tell our story and helping grow this space that is going to be a big part of the bicycle alternative transportation industry going forward for the US. So
yeah, awesome. Of course. Yeah. Well, with that, I'd like to say ride on. Go check out, you can find Jimmy on LinkedIn. You can find his company, of course, at solebicycles.com. And yeah, get yourself on one of those vehicles. They're fun. I've had a chance to ride them. So yeah, have a great day, Jimmy.
Thank you so much, James. Cheers, guys.